So I just wanted to comment real quick on the debate about the historicity of Jesus versus the mythicist position of Jesus Christ in the first century. Primarily, I'm talking about the arguments that exist among agnostics and agnostic atheists about whether or not Jesus Christ actually lived in the first place. Now, it's a very frustrating conversation if you really think about it, because at the end of the day, we all kind of have the same common goal in mind, which is to help Christians realize that the literature that they believe is literally accurate and true, we all agree that it's not, that the literature does not accurately represent and reflect any real character that existed, and that regardless of whether or not he was really born, whether or not there was a guy named Jesus really born, regardless, the version of him that we read about in the Gospel of Mark and the other Gospels, we all agree that version of Jesus wasn't real. Now, a recent argument I heard from another TikToker actually, who was trying to put down the mythicist position and claim that there's way too much evidence that there was a historical Jesus that actually existed. He even went on to say, look, there's all these Jesuses named out by Josephus, for example. He named like 5, 6, 7, 8 different Jesuses that existed around the first century, and that's proof right there that there obviously was Jesuses walking around. And so it'd be kind of crazy to think that there was never a guy named Jesus walking around. But that argument completely misses the entire point of this entire debate. The point is, there was no Mark's version of Jesus walking around. Just by saying, oh, look, there was thousands of people named Jesus in the first century, so clearly Jesus may have actually existed, doesn't actually tell us anything. The very same agnostic, atheist, historicist, Jesus-supporting debaters will tell you straight up, if you ask them clear enough questions, they'll tell you straight up that, yeah, the version of Jesus in the Gospels, that version didn't exist, but it may be based on someone who really lived. Do you see my point? Even if there were 1,000 people named Oedipus around the time that he was written about in the Iliad and the Odyssey, doesn't necessarily mean that the version of Oedipus we're reading about was in any way, shape, or form real. So if we all agree that the version of Jesus that the Gospels and the New Testament talk about certainly didn't exist, no one really walked around performing miracles, walking on water, raising the dead, dying for our sins, being resurrected, being born of a virgin, we all agree that none of that stuff actually happened, and yet we still have these agnostic atheists who want to try and somehow support this claim that, well, Jesus did technically exist though.